Welcome back. The high death toll due to COVID-19 in Malaysia has caused the National Institute of Forensic Medicine, or IPFN, to face a bitter situation when experiencing backlogs in the management of bodies. In contrast to the management of bodies of non-COVID-19 patients, the COVID-19 deaths need to be managed with the utmost care by frontliners and expedited for burial or cremation. HKL forensic pathologist Dr. Salma Arshad says the existing space in the IPFN morgue is not sufficient, and the victims are now placed in containers which were turned into makeshift morgues that could store 12 to 20 bodies of COVID-19 patients. This in and of itself is cause for anxiety and depression. Now, think about it for a while. The COVID-19 pandemic has had a major effect on our lives. Many of us are facing challenges that can be stressful, overwhelming, and cause strong emotions in adults and children. Public health actions such as social distancing are necessary to reduce the spread of COVID-19, but they make us feel isolated and lonely and can increase stress and anxiety. Learning to cope with stress in a healthy way will make you, the people you care about, and those around you become more resilient. But trust me, it's easier said than done. Joining me via Skype is Joyce Hugh, a counseling psychologist and a clinical hypnotherapist. Anxiety is on the rise. Deputy DG of Health says 90.58% of calls made to COVID-19 hotlines were those requesting psychological and emotional support. And this was from Free Malaysia Today. Joyce, thanks for sending us all this feedback and these pointers or discussion parameters. What are your thoughts on this? What the Deputy DG is saying about the percentage of calls being made? Joyce?
I think that what you said is correct. Right now, just watching the news, hearing about COVID numbers, that's just so stressful for everyone, and it sends us on this desperation mode, this fear of even going out. The loneliness that we have to face when we are stuck at home. Of course, we know about the economic situation. There are lots of people going through fears about not being able to keep their jobs or whether business will it come in or not. So with this kind of crisis happening, I think it's very natural that a lot of people go through all this anxiety. And when there is a feeling of helplessness as well, that's where the feeling of depression comes. The feeling of being desperate for some kind of help or some kind of assistance to get rid of this.
Joyce, I've got a question. I'd like to interject here because everyone's been doing this. Everyone's sort of jumping on the bandwagon and everyone wants to do something, okay? So every day you hear stories or you get tips on how to deal with yourself. Wake up in the morning, you need to have a bit of a routine to do this, do that. But if you're suffering from depression or if you're heading towards depression or some sort of general anxiety disorder, you know that it's a tough road. And whatever is being done on TV, on radio, all these tips that are being given out, are we seeing any success with the advice or tips being given out to people?
I think what you said just now is right. It's easier said than done. But first thing I must say, if that you have anxiety or depression, the best thing to do is to meet a professional. But one thing that you can do quite immediately for yourself is to learn to change your mindset and the words that you have towards yourself. For example, if you are saying that I'm stressed, and every day you're saying that, it's more of you hypnotizing yourself or reinforcing that I am stressed. So I think the most important thing for us to do is to accept the fact. Don't be in denial and don't say that I can't be anxious, because we are in a crisis situation right now. It's almost like a war. So we have to say that, yes, I'm anxious. Yes, I'm afraid, but that's okay. I think the word that's okay is one of the nicest things that you can say to yourself. Because
how does it have a physiological effect? I like to start. You say that's okay is a good thing you can do, and it sort of relaxes the muscles or relaxes the body. So physiologically, what's happening here when you tell yourself it's okay? What's happening within the body?
It's more of that we have this fight and flight response inside us, because when we are in crisis, our body naturally reacts. So when we have this fight attitude, we tend to get a bit angry and our muscles tense up. So we are ready to go and attack, right? Or another thing would be that we freeze and we don't do anything. That's where issues like depression, addiction and all it comes in. Or another common reaction towards all the stress is that we would just freeze and don't do anything, right? So we are in denial, and that will actually be a bad thing, not only for you, but for the people around you. One example, when a lot of people say it's okay, I'll just go out anyway because I am denying the dangers outside. So of course that's not good. So when you do say it's okay, it reduces that fear that you have. And it tells your mind, it's more a subconscious conditioning in your mind that it's okay, I'm okay. Even though I'm stuck at home, I'm safe at home. So one thing you have to do is to identify your negative triggers, for example, being stuck at home, and reframe it to a much positive word. For example, I am safe at home. A lot of people right now, a common thing would be that I'm worried my business can't survive. So if you are thinking about fear, about business, about survival, of course you'll be tense and that fight and flight mode comes in. So change your mindset to say that, okay, business is slow, but I will work on building my website right now. I'll focus more on networking. So after this whole thing is over, I will start running again. Another very good tip for mothers probably would be that when they have to juggle childcare and work, they would say things like, my kids are driving me crazy. So reframe the word crazy, reframe that stress that you have to juggle everything to saying something like, it's going to be a treasured moment 10 years later and we'll tell our grandkids how much fun we have together. So it's all about your mindset. Sometimes it's your mindset that actually traps you. But once you change it, once you start taking control and doing the best that you can at that point of time, I think that's the most important. There are a lot of things that we can't control out there. And then we focus on that, we are definitely stressed and we feel helpless. So take control of what you can do within my little house. What am I going to do? Within my job situation right now, what can I do?
Right.
Maybe I could.
I hear you. I hear you. I understand where you're coming from with this.
Yeah.
But when you say you need to reframe your mindset or reframe the way you think or the way you put words together, form words in your head, a lot of people say you need to change your inner dialogue. Is there a correlation between what you're saying and one's inner dialogue?
Yeah, I think it's the same. It's just that we are conditioned since young with a lot of negativity. So that becomes our own inner dialogue. I think an easier way to look at it is, let's say a friend comes to you and say that I'm depressed. How would you respond to that friend? Normally, we would tell your friend, it's okay, look at the bright side. You have your husband and kids with you. So if we can advise that to our friend, why can't we do it for ourselves, right? So if you can't really learn to reframe and change your own inner dialogue, just pretend you are your friend and you're giving advice to yourself. So I would think that I'm not good enough. That's why I got laid off, right? But if a friend says that, you would probably advise the friend and say that your skills will be better used somewhere else. Or when situation's good, because of your confidence, I'm sure you'll survive everywhere. So say that back to yourself again. So sometimes if you find it a bit tough, especially if you're alone, no one can help you reframe your mindset. Just imagine that you are talking to a friend, which is yourself, right? Imagine you're giving advice to yourself as a third party. I think that helps quite a bit.
So while we're speaking, we're going to try to get our friends in the background to sort of super helplines. We've got Talian Kasih, Befrienders, Lifeline Association of Malaysia, Community Healthcare Clinic. All these are free resources which one can use if, say, you just need to speak to someone. They say sometimes it's better to speak to a stranger than to people you know. Now, I guess we've got about a minute left, maybe a little more than a minute. But before I let you go, a lot of us now are told by family or friends or family that you probably need to see a healthcare professional. Something's not right with you. And when it comes to psychiatry or psychology, people are like, oh no, there's nothing wrong with me, I think I'm okay.
Yeah.
Now, how do we get past this hurdle when you're dealing with a family member? If, say, you need to tell a brother or sister, look, hey, you have a problem, please, you need to go speak to someone immediately. How do you do that? Or how can we do that? Just give us a tip or two. Yeah.
I would probably tell people or my family members that if you are able to look towards the other angle, there are other angles which you can see from this point of view. So probably I know you are trapped right now. I know you can't see it and you're full of fear right now. So let someone help you. If you're not comfortable with a professional, maybe you could go to a common friend first, and that friend would then guide you to someone else. Because like you mentioned, sometimes it's tough for us to get advice from our family members. So sometimes a third party will always help in this point of
We've
view.
got about 30 seconds left. Your message to Malaysia about reframing your mindset in 30 seconds. Here you go.
I would say try to think more positive. I know it's difficult right now, but when you start talking to yourself, it's like conditioning. So try and prepare a few statements, or maybe every morning you can say, I'll be okay, I'm in control today. So this kind of positive self-talk, or maybe even your motto that I am okay, I am confident, I'm strong enough. I think that will help you quite a lot in surviving through this whole FMCO and this whole pandemic situation.
Right, Joyce, it was a pleasure and an honor talking to you. That was counseling psychologist and clinical hypnotherapist Joyce Hugh. We'll be, of course, having her on one of our nations to walk us through some techniques as to how you can relax yourself or better reframe your mind. Thanks again, Joyce. Of course, once again, we're going to take another break. When we come back, 28 elephants in Tamil Nadu's Tiger Reserve tested positive for COVID. And Emmanuel Macron was slapped in the face during a walkabout in southern France. Details coming up shortly. Stay with us right here on the Midday Update.